Hi there, Jim from Country Contacts. What I want to show you here today is something I've put together. I'm calling it a Kenyan top bar mini hive, and it's a bit of a story to it. This what you see here. I had a previous life as a doll's, like a doll's bassinet or a doll's cot. I picked it up at the junk shop. Actually, it's like a recycled shop that's attached to the rubbish tip. So someone has thrown this out and another person has put it aside. I was actually in what they call the green shed looking for something completely different, and I saw it and I thought, bloody hell, I could do something with that. So this is what I've done, and this isn't a how to do video by any stretch of the imagination, but you'll probably find it entertaining, and you might get some ideas. I mean, the concept of a Kenyan top bar hive remains the same. So I'm going to run through it. Okay, I'm going to run through what I did and what I started with. Yes, I'll insert a few photos of when I first got the cot. We'll call it a cot. And you'll see the first thing I did was ground off the old legs that were tattered and torn, and glued and screwed 2 new runners, galvanised runners under there. It's one of the first things I did. The lid, you might recognise, is off a small dog kennel, those prefab poly dog kennels that you can buy, and I had to modify it a bit. The lid, I had to put a couple of bits of angle iron there so it fits nicely over the sides. And what I originally thought I'd do was bore a hole here and have them coming in, but there was just something about the little cot, I didn't want to abuse it anymore, so I thought, well, why not actually use the vent that's there? So it hasn't been tested yet, but I'm sure the bees will work it out. In fact, just on that, we're in the swarm season here in Australia, but there hasn't been many yet. I personally think it's about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later than it normally is. We've had a really lot of wet weather and cool weather, and this time last year I was catching swarms all over the place, and I know there's a few buzzing around, but I haven't actually caught one yet. The first one I catch is going to go in here. So that's the lid. Then we have a follower board, and I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. I've got these cleats with a little bit of foundation on them, and they will build down off that in a very natural sort of a way. Just put a few of them down there. The other thing I did was bored a hole in the bottom, and I've put, it's actually a floor waste, plumber's floor waste as a vent there, and I reckon they'll probably push the hive beetles down through that. But the hive beetles don't seem to be too bad. I was very depressed about it 10-12 years ago. I thought, oh, this is it, you know, the world's going to end. But the guys in the US seem to be having more trouble with hive beetles than we are. So the beauty of, there's a few good things about a Kenyan hive. The downside is you can't spin the frames. They're not a standard size. You can't extract the honey and keep the comb. You've got to obviously you leave the brood alone, but if to harvest the honeycomb, you've actually got to cut it off and press it, and I've got to press. So that's one disadvantage of it. The advantage, you should get lovely honeycomb. I'll just put them back. Obviously I'll have to put a couple of runners in there to take them. The good thing about it, now the follower board, depending on how big the swarm is that I catch, you can start small. You can start small and increase it. Increase the size as you go along. If it's a good size swarm, I probably will start, what have I got there? 8 frames, and then follow it up with the follower board so that they don't build wonky comb in this space here. I've got others. I've got all these which fill in that, all of that. Now if you think you want to play around with a Kenyan hive, you can either put the starter strips like that, or you can just melt some beeswax and dribble along that groove. Does the same thing. So this will be a fairly short episode, but we haven't done one for a while, so thought I needed something to talk about. Probably the next time you see this will be me putting some bees in it or something like that, or maybe a harvest. What else? What haven't I said? I think that's about it. One other good thing about the Kenyan hive, let's pull these out again. Oh, by the way, if you are thinking about doing this, that spacing is important. Like, it's not critical within a millimetre or so, but it is important. That's, and I don't know, I haven't got the figures in front of me, but you can Google it. But that's, in a wild hive or in a length-growth hive, that would be about the same distance between the frames, between the comb, allowing for a bee space. So that's you know, kind of important. For instance, you know, if you had them like that, it just wouldn't work. There'd be no room. They'd just be a wonky comb, and there'd be no bee space, or they'd make their own bee space, and we don't want that. Just so one last thing is the good thing about this, when you go to inspect them or even to rob them, that goes either way, by the way. When you come up to a length-growth hive and you pull the lid off, they go, bloody hell, the roof's blown off, you know, and they're, depending on their temperament, they're ready to have a go at you, you know. They're coming out in defence. But with these, with the Kenyan, which originated in Kenya obviously, when you pull the roof off, they're still oblivious to the fact that you're there to rob them, because it's still kind of sealed up. And then you can just carefully take out one frame at a time. If you don't want to look at the brood, you don't even have to expose the brood. It stays nice and dark. So that's about it. Nice little short episode. Some people said my episodes are too long. One kind gentleman called me a buffoon. That's all right. You get that. But anyway, loving Instagram. Jess got me on Instagram, and that's put me in touch with a lot of people all around the world. Slovenia, dozen or so people in the US, and Adelaide, North Queensland, Victoria, from where I come from. But yeah, it's been wonderful, and it's been a great experience. And I'm not a Facebook person, but Instagram is just, you can just choose who you want to have a look at, and vice versa. Anyway, that's it. I'm calling it a Kenyan Mini, so I'm sure you'll see that in other episodes. Thanks very much. Over and out.